Hey guys, Crunch here from Crunch Team. Today, I'm going to be reading a story that I wrote. Chapter 3 of Freedom Through Sorrow. Let's begin. Chapter 3. I just sat there waiting for the battle to end, wondering what I'll do when one of the two sides win. The rebels have one advantage though, manpower. 60% of the population is dirt poor. 20% are underpaid soldiers. That means the Imperials are outnumbered. However, that's only true when the rest of the Empire doesn't show up. You see, the Iridian Empire has been fighting a war on two fronts, one in Domain and one in Ceridia. We live in the country Ceridia, and the rebellion is going to be victorious if the war in both Domain and Ceridia drain all of the Iridian Empire's supplies. We both have made a blockade draining their imports, so for now the armies can't send reinforcements. That means the rebels could win this attack, and I could leave unharmed and probably make my way to a nearby town and make a plan there. But the Iridians are ruthless warriors. They are the most brutally trained soldiers to ever exist. They have fought 1,000 soldiers against 200 before, but despite propaganda, it was believed to be either exaggerated or a fluke, or even both. Rebels think a gap opened up in enemy lines where the Iridians flanked them on the battlefield. I am praying to the gods at this point. Just please let the rebels win. Honestly though, I wasn't nearly as concerned about the battles I should have been. I was still thinking of Jacob, wondering why he had made his decision. But it didn't matter at that point. I needed to get out of town. For nearly an hour I sat there in my own misery. I snapped back into reality, still crying, and realized I was wasting time. I needed to look out the window and see what was going on. In the center of town, I lived in the center of town, so if I didn't see rebel forces, they haven't broken through. 2 hours have passed, no sign of rebel forces. I needed to get to a point where I could hide and wait, watch the battle continue to unfold. After several minutes of no soldiers passing, I opened the door and ran out to the other end of I ran to the alley across the street. I could hear crowds of soldiers roaring from the outer edges of town. I saw the church tower in the distance peeking over the house's rooftops. I had to get to that church and climb up top and see the front lines from a distance. I ran into the main street and continued walking with haste and paranoia. It was a small town, so I eventually made it to the church. Luckily, there were no guards that could have turned it into a temporary base to fall back to if rebels broke through the town. Strangely, I walked up to the front of doors of the church, and there was a man, a soldier, tied to a pole in front of the stairs leading up to the church doors. He was shot with a bow, probably by other soldiers, as there were 7 arrows in his torso, and only soldiers were allowed to have a weapon of any kind. His weapons sat on the ground near him, thrown to the ground. He was probably charged with treason and executed, as soldiers disobeying orders to commit terrorist acts was not uncommon. I picked up his sword and bow, along with his quiver, and marched into the church wearing my rag clothes and a sword in hand. There were priests praying at the altar, terrified. I was confused. Then I saw around 30 priests on the ground, stabbed to death. Some had bloody arrows stuck in their back and sides. I was terrified, but not surprised. Frickin' soldiers. Those barbarians need to go to hell, I mumbled to myself. The priest around me turned around and saw me. Who dares bring weapons into the temple of the gods? Alrund will be angered. The gods of war have cursed these soldiers for dishonor. Why shouldn't he curse you? One of them questioned me. I am not here to kill, I'm here to hide. I need these weapons just in case, I responded. No. They have killed us for preaching the prophecy that the gods have abandoned the Iridians. It's time for the war to be in the rebels' favor. Wait, what do you mean? The Iridians can no longer rely on Hana, goddess of luck, for they must choose their actions carefully, for the time of anarchy will fall. But you must leave, or you're dead, for your fate is clear. But you must come with me, or you'll die. You preach for Iridia. The rebels will kill you all. No, we must die as faithful people. I clearly wasn't welcome, so I tried to leave. Then I heard crowds of soldiers swiftly growing closer. Retreat! They screamed. It was the rebels. They'll mistake me as the priest's servants. I had to leave, go somewhere where I can't be mistaken as an enemy. I ran behind the altar. Where are you going? One of them asked with a tone. I didn't respond when the rebels slammed the doors open and stormed the church. As I slipped away behind the altar, I heard the priests scream in pain and agony as they were stabbed to death.